Well, let's just talk about my CEO tenure, because if we talk about my entire tenure, we could be here the rest of the evening. In the CEO tenure, when I took over as CEO, let's not forget we had the financial crisis. So here I am, literally a year after I've taken over, we've got collapse of the financial system. The US is going through its crisis, international is growing, and PepsiCo is more of a US company than international. So I have to figure out how to, sort of add to my international portfolio really fast. So I have to get that done. While that's going on, my North American bottling partners are behaving in a little erratic way, so that I have to figure out how to reset the relationship with them. So that's another challenge I'm facing. On top of that, there was a lot of talk about obesity and taxes on our categories. So, in every which way that I turned, there's some crisis that I'm dealing with. But you can't let that get you down, because the whole organization is looking at you to lead the company calmly, with confidence, thoughtfully. So what you do is, exterior wise, you project a very calm, confident image. You can go inside your office and, you know, uh, paddle very, very furiously, which is what I was doing. Um, in those moments, it was tough, because there's so many balls that you've got in the air trying to get all of that done. You hope that you can power the company through so much change, that all your key executives stay with you through this change, because you can't do it yourself. You need them all on your team. So you've got to co-opt them, you've got to engage them head, heart, and hands, make sure they understand your agenda and execute it with you. So those were very difficult times while delivering the quarter. Don't forget. We can't forget the quarter while delivering the quarter. So I remember now that between the time I was CFO, president and CFO and CEO, I delivered 75 quarters of earnings releases. 75 quarters. I was on the call for 75 quarters of earnings release. So, you had to keep that pressure going to deliver the quarter, yet make all of these changes happen. It was not easy, and not easy at all.
That's a lot of quarters, man. I just
Yeah,
I'm like, I
that is a
can't,
lot of quarters.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like, and just the experiences that you had from that. But I'm curious to know, in all of that, what were some of the main lessons that you learned, or what were some of the main things that taught you about leadership in business?
I think the first one is really understand what you're doing, have conviction in what you're doing, and make sure that your board, in particular, as a CEO, you have to make sure your bosses, that's the board, buys into what you're doing, because they are your first line of defense against any action from shareholders. So if your board is bought into you, you have some room to get your plan executed. So you have to have clarity of direction, clarity of how you're going to implement it, and you've got to have the board completely bought into what you're doing. At the same time, you've got to sell your program into your senior executives and your, I'd say, top three levels of the company, because at the end of the day, you've got to make it happen through them. Through them. They have to carry your message. They have to make sure the rest of the organization lines up. And so the challenge we have is, in the hours of the day, how do you craft the message, get the board signed up? And you just don't get them signed up once and walk away. You've got to reinforce it regularly with the board and get your senior executives signed on. But then those that don't, after a while, you say, look, it's time to leave, because you can try with them for a few months, but if they still don't sign on to the program, they've got to be moved out. Otherwise, they become sort of the stumbling blocks in the company. And so, we had to move out some of the people through retirements. But all of this took a lot of time, and you had to do all this while keeping the current business running and keeping a family going. So I'd say that that particular time when we were trying to effect a major change and implement performance with purpose and navigate through the financial crisis and the bottling transactions was perhaps the most difficult time of my professional life, but all in the public eye, because everybody's watching to see, is this woman going to succeed? Not as a CEO, is this woman going to succeed? Is this person of color who's an immigrant going to succeed as a CEO of this Fortune 50 iconic company? So everybody's watching to see when you're going to fail, okay? When you're going to fail. And so it was tough in those days, really tough. And social media doesn't help because anything you say or do gets amplified in social media. So one had to be very careful navigating through all the crises at that time. But I had a great team around me, Lila. I had a really good team around me.